Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this episode of Aleve Academy. Today's guest is someone whose story has genuinely moved me. Do you want to do a short introduction?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Nirnimesh Koted. I'm from Rajasthan, India. I'm currently pursuing Bachelor of Veterinary Science and Animal Husbandry in Jaipur. I have been writing essays, poems, and prose since I was around 14 to 16 years old. And I'm an enthusiastic individual who enjoys explore creativity, nature, and trying to mock beautiful poetry and work for conserving and preserving tribal knowledge and local indigenous community knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So he's a writer, a poet, and an advocate who beautifully blends creativity, empathy, and science using poetry, zoology to explore human emotion. So for our first question, you describe creativity as a bridge between animals, the environment, and human emotion. How did you first start realizing that connection, and how do you express it in your poetry?
First of all, before diving deep into this, I wanted to express my view. What is creativity? I think creativity for me is something like a shared language, expression, or code of life. Or it doesn't only flow through the human's mind, but also through the rhythms of animals and patterns of Mother Nature too. The realization, this connection I realized this connection when I was a child. I was around maybe 8 years old, where I got this realization, and I can tell it was like losing a track of time when you really invest your even simple interest into the nature. You see how tiny connection nature connects with you and others. As someone who belongs from tribal community, I've seen people praying trees and crops and festival, and it started somehow building a spiritual connection, I would say, and about expressing all the feeling of Mother Nature and animals. I was like revolutionary it was, and comforting and writing about experience and all. I would express those feelings through the metaphor, most like how bird intricate nests, those rivers carve valleys, flower bloom in various colors, wind sculpts the sand and desert. All this creativity acts not just for the applause, but for the life itself. They meet the primal root of imagining where the mind weaves those things into the writing. It becomes an ecosystem in the mind which binds all living things together. That's what I use in a poetry and prose writing.
Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, so you faced unique health challenges since birth, and you have turned them into sources of strength and empathy. How have these experiences influenced the way that you see the world and the kind of stories and poems you've written?
Since birth, I've struggled a lot with the health issues and many disorders. I had often missed many classes due to that. My school life was not that good, and my even my college life is not going good. My body has spoken. I would say my body has spoken a different language, one of endurance, silence, and small victories. It has given so many things. It has given so many things over my skin and to the heart. About what once felt like a limitation has slowly become a form of translation. My health challenges taught me to read the world not in straight line, but in a pauses, in a way a leaf trembles before falling, on how pain can coexist with light. Because of that, I don't write a story to escape reality. I write to uncover this texture. I write to search for the new meaning, hope, purposes, and life. My poems often carry empathy and hope as a backbone for fragility, for resilience, for quiet bravery in living things each day. I've learned that strength um, isn't the substance of struggle, but way we shaped into the meaning. Illness taught me that every being, animal, tree, or human, holds an inner dialogue, breaking and blooming. So my writing turns try to echo that rhythm, to turn the stars into metaphors and metaphors into connection. And I know I got a lot more time to experience more things in life, and I'm really eager to put those stories and poems into my writing.
That's beautiful. So, you talk about feeling lost or off track due to cultural erosion and underrepresentation. How do you use your writing and advocacy to reclaim that space and give a voice to your community?
Yeah. There are times I felt invisible, like caught between the echoes of my ancestor and the noise of world. It rarely hears a voice like ours. Cultural erosion doesn't take away a tradition. It steals the language, memory, and belonging. These things like colonization, exploitation, genocide history, and wars have made things already so worse. But through writing, I found a way to stitch those fragments back together. And my poems and stories are act of reclamation. I write to name that what was silence, to translate the ancestral strain into contemporary language. Like every line become a bridge, and between that was one sung around the flies, and what now is digital spaces. And yes, representation does matter, and it puts one in a position to able to represent its own community at this stage. And advocacy for me is like not about resistance; it's about rooting. Like I try to use my voice to remind other that our stories are not relics, testament. They are living, evolving, breathing, testament of identity. Whether I'm writing about land, language, or loss, I want to speak for those who were written out and celebrate the resilience of those who remain. I'm reclaiming like that space through art, and I'm not just telling my story. I'm extending my hand to my community, like saying we are still here and our voice still matters.
That's great. So, in your essay, you mentioned that everything around us, every sense, touch, and element is interconnected. Can you share a moment in nature that has shaped or like that has shaped that belief in your creative process?
Yeah. I think that belief that everything is interconnected came to me not from the books, but from the being the outside in a quiet. Like I remember once during the monsoon, I was sitting near the edge of our village forest. The soil was breathing. You could hear it soft and alive, fresh after the first rain. The first, like the air smell of the wet bark, and the wind carried voices that didn't need words. The rustle of leaves, the rhythm of crickets, and the call of a distant bird. In that moment, like I realized how everything is connected, like the rain, the trees, the animals, even my heartbeat. There was like a part of one long conversation, like nothing existed alone. It wasn't just nature speaking to me. It was like nature speaking to me. And about the books, I would say book also helped me, but it kind of influenced me because I see a lot of representation in the books about like my community, like some of the poets and from the Africa, from the Asia, from Europe, like from the like indigenous community. Like I hear a lot of stories, and that's how I started writing to translate that feeling of connection into the language. Like my poetry tries to hold it pulse, like that sense we are thread in the same fabric. Like every poem I write, in some way, that is my way of saying thank you to that moment, like to the land that raised me.
So you seem very connected to nature. Do you spend a lot of time outdoors?
Yeah, actually, I spend like in my village, I spend a lot of time like around the forest. Like I with myself, I like try to keep my dog with myself, like to see how nature, like everything's connected. Like I see how birds are connected with those plants, and like I see how biotic and abiotic factors are connected, like how our ecosystem play an important part. I try to live those moments of nature.
Okay, great. So you have received so many awards for poetry and your writing. Is there one piece that feels most personal to you? And could you tell us what inspired it?
Yeah, I would say there are many pieces like that, and like there are like my most favorite to me. But there is one piece like which has won so many awards, which is like in Shakespearean style, which I wouldn't be able to like say it here because it's very very long, and you can find those like pieces on the like Google on my sites around it. But there is one piece that is small, like which is like 6 to 7, is it really unpublished, and which is in 6 to 7 lines, which I would like to like speak it. If if I can't call a halt to one's heart from the breaking into the hoods of a false policy, I should not get paid under the gossamer yet taught melange of me. If I can't ease one life, the aching, nor eyes the racing of fellow feeling, I should not loathe to label myself the only Robin, an introspection to stir up with odium things, who want to suspect the freedom of own ways. Okay, so this piece, it's a poem I wrote during the period of quiet introspection, like when I was questioning the idea of how much we can truly help others, like how much of that desire comes from our own need to heal. Like the poem speak about trying to ease that another pain, but realizing that sometimes you simply can. It's like it's about learning not to carry the weight of every broken heart, but still keeping compassion alive with yourself. The Robin I mentioned in the symbol of that soft, rebellion, tender defiance of still believing in freedom, even when the world is like try to mold you into doubt. Like it came from the moment of surrender and accepting that empathy is about fixing like everything, but feeling deeply without leaving. So yeah, it's like yourself in the process, and that's why it stays closest to me. It reminds me that even we can't halt someone heart from breaking, but we can still choose not to harden ours. So it was inspired by the Emily Dickinson poetry. So yeah.
That's beautiful. So, you mentioned wanting a more accurate representation of neurodivergent and tribal individuals in the media. What kind of change would you like to see in how those stories are told?
That's something I feel very strongly about. Often, like I see when media tries to portray a neurodivergent or a tribal individual, like I am a neurodivergent and I am a tribal person, and they leans on kind of stereotype and either like romanticizing their pain or reducing their identity to the struggle alone. Like what I love to see is a humanity. Before narrative labels. Like for neurodivergent people, I want stories that don't just show their challenges, also their rhythm, creativity, and humor, and the way their mind paint the world differently. Like there's so much beauty in that difference, and yet it's rarely shown as a strength. And for the tribal communities, I like their story to be told by them. Uh, not just about them to see their culture, laughter, and like resilience reflected authentically, like not through the lens of pity or preservation, but through the pride. Like they're not relics of the past; they are evolving the voice of today. And represent shouldn't just aim to the include; it should listen. Like when we allow people to tell their own stories, we move from mere visibility to real understanding. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, here at Olive Academy, we believe creativity can be a great tool for us for education and empathy. How do you think storytelling or poetry can be used to teach emotional awareness and inclusion, even about neurodivergent people or tribal people, anything like that?
That question that feels like very close to me, like that not just as a poet, but as a someone who was neurodivergent and from a tribal background. Like for me, the storytelling has always been more than art. Like it's like a translation, and I kind of express this storytelling in form of dance. Like I also do dance and occasionally, and also through singing, also through the poetry, also through like present storytelling through many arts. And it's how I translate emotions and that don't always fit in a regular language. And like when I try, like when I write or share poetry, I'm not trying to make people understand me. Like I am trying to make them feel seen with me. And that's the start of empathy. Like stories and the poems bridge the space between our worlds, and they teach about the emotional awareness, not by lecturing but by emerging. You don't tell someone how it feels to be unseen. You let them walk through our silence. Like coming from tribal lineage, like I've seen the storytelling as a community, like where the words one performances, like they were fire we gather around. Like as a neurodivergent mind, I learned that the expression doesn't have to be linear or meaningful. Like you can see, I lack some kind of expression because I'm kind of autistic person, so it's like kind of break the bridge to build a better communication. But poetry allows that. It gives a shape to emotions like that often doesn't have any names. So when we use storytelling and poetry in education, we are not just teaching how to write, like we're teaching how to listen and how to sit with differences and how to understand that everyone feels world in their own rhythm. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So, our last question. So, for listeners who might be struggling with their creative voice while feeling different or misunderstood, just like you were, what would you want them to know?
I would say if you're out there feeling different, misunderstood, or like a thought doesn't quite fit into the modern world and modern world's mold, and know this that exactly where your creativity lives, like being a neurodivergent or coming from a background that isn't always represented in mainstream media, is in media and stories, like isn't limitation. It's your unique talent, like it's your unique lens, like your perspective, your voice, your way of seeing and feeling the world is the world is what the world needs to hear. Like start, you can start small. Like I have started like so small. Like it was like I have made so many mistakes, even in like through so many things. Like I've made so many mistakes, and like I write a poem, like a line, even a poem, like to thoughts, even. So don't wait for the permission or for the thought or like someone else to validate your experiences. Like trust your instincts, honor your emotion, and remember, your different isn't flaw. Like it's a spark that will make you that you are undeniable. Like your art is undeniable. The stories only you can tell are waiting for you to give them like life. And yeah,
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for joining us in the podcast today. I really appreciated your answers. You had some great answers.
thanks so much.
Okay.